All right, doors are closed. Thanks everyone for coming out this morning. Today we're going to be talking about ForeFlight Dispatch, and this is the 101 course. Tomorrow we will also have a 201 course, a little bit more advanced, getting into more settings. So definitely come by and join us for that as well. I'm Caitlin Galloway. I am the product owner for Dispatch, and I have been with ForeFlight for 6.5 years, and I am a private pilot. On today's agenda, we're going to be doing pretty much just a high-level overview of the Dispatch ecosystem, all of the integrations that we provide in Dispatch, and then we're going to walk through a couple different flight plans and show relevant features for each of those flight plans. So this is the Dispatch ecosystem. We've got Dispatch here in the center. On the left side here, we have several scheduling systems that we integrate with just out of the box, and we do that via API. So if you have a scheduling system, you can integrate that into ForeFlight Dispatch, and all of your flights can automatically feed in. And then in the Dispatch view, if you need to, you can do more complex flight planning and add documents, anything like that. On the bottom here, we also offer a couple different options for trip support. So if you need trip support, they can be in the Dispatch environment working on the same flight plan as your planners are. And they could be adding documents, making changes as needed as well. And then finally on the right, once we've done all that flight planning, all of that information gets disseminated down to the crew in ForeFlight Mobile. And everything syncs back to each other. So any changes that the crew make, those are going to go back to Dispatch as well. We have quite a few new features that we just rolled out or we are in the process of rolling out. Runway Analysis, Weight and Balance, Tankering, and EAPIS are all integrated within Dispatch. On the session tomorrow, we're going to get more in the weeds with Tankering and EAPIS. So come to the session tomorrow if you want to learn more about those. Finally, on the left side here, just to show you, here's just a small sampling of the scheduling systems that we integrate with. So ForeFlight Dispatch is a very powerful tool. It's going to connect everyone in the flight department, your schedulers, your dispatchers, planners, and all the way to the crew. And the great thing about this integrated system is that it's going to increase efficiency. You're going to have more productivity with the automations that we provide, and overall just make the workflow more seamless. So now that we've kind of talked about it high level, let's get into a couple of flight plans. And we're just going to walk through, like I mentioned, if you have a scheduling system, a lot of this flight planning can already be imported, and then you can kind of go from there. I'm going to be building some flights from scratch just so you can walk through the entire workflow. So when you log into ForeFlight on the web, there's a Dispatch tab at the top left, and this is the view that you're coming into. So you can see we've already got some scheduled flights feeding in here. And this column here, as you can see, we're going to get information about the flight, if it's been acknowledged, if it's been rejected, cleared as filed, if the crew has gotten their PDC. So you can kind of get just a high-level view of what's going on with the flights. At the top of this view, there's quite a few different ways for you to filter the flights. You can sort by the filing status. You can also set any custom time frames. You can filter by who created the flight. And then on the right side here, we have watch list and search. Watch list is a really powerful tool for planners because it gives you the ability, if you only want to see, for example, a certain aircraft type. I have a Gulfstream 5 type code in here. That is a permanent filter that will stay on that computer. So you immediately significantly reduce the amount of clutter in this view. If you need to get more detailed than that, or just search for something really quickly, of course, you can use search just to the right of that. So you can see it's really easy to narrow down and get to the exact flight that you're looking for. Now that we've taken a look at the dispatch flights list, we are going to make a new flight. So I'm going to click the new flight button at the top left. And the first thing we're going to do is select an aircraft. So you can click the drop down and we're going to show you any aircraft you've created on your account. And we'll also show you, for example, I'm choosing a PC-24 for this flight. You can see that Runway Analysis is turned on for this aircraft. So you can make sure everything's set up correctly before you start planning with that aircraft. And for this first flight here, we're just going to do a short hop from Vegas to Van Nuys. And when you type in the aircraft field, we're going to give you this pop-up here. We're going to try to suggest what you might be looking for. You can search Van Nuys if you don't know the identifier. And we're also going to show you some weather information, runway information. After that, of course, we can change the date and time. We will pretty much autofill for that day, like 30 minutes out. That's what's going to automatically show up in there. But you can change that, and you can plan a time of departure or a time of arrival. On the alternate fields here, again, you will be able to see, we'll show you nearby alternates, we'll show you weather, we'll show you runway information. And you have the ability to add a second alternate or a takeoff alternate. Moving down to the fuel section, the first thing that we want to choose is our aircraft profiles. So this is something that we just recently added. We've always had en route performance, the published cruise profiles for all aircraft. But now, if your aircraft supports it, you can choose between climb and descent profiles as well. Just below that field, we have the cruise advisor. And when you click on that, it's going to open up this view here, and you can compare up to 3 cruise profiles at a time. What we're going to show you here is different altitudes, and we will show you your best time and your best fuel. So depending on your mission, you can make an informed decision about the best altitude and the best cruise profile for that flight. Continuing over to the right, we can choose our fuel policy. These are the same fuel policies that you will see in ForeFlight Mobile. For this flight, I think I just chose minimum fuel, but of course you have options. If you want to carry extra fuel, if you want to set a landing fuel, you can make those changes here. After that, we can choose our FBOs, and we just click the drop down, and we're going to show you the available FBOs. We're going to show you retail fuel pricing, and we will also show you JFX pricing if you've connected your fuel cards with ForeFlight. In the advanced fuel options, we do offer more reserve fuel policies now. So you can see the drop down here. You can plan your reserve in minutes. You can choose Part 91, Part 135, EASA Commercial, and we'll automatically change those reserve requirements in the performance section. Moving down to the crew section, this piece is really important because who you choose as your crew is who's going to get all this flight plan information. So I've selected myself here and Sam as my SIC, and then we can go over to the load section. Our 2 pilots are already counted in the load section here. They're grayed out. We can't change them. They're included in the basic operating weight. And this load page has been here for a while, but we recently released integrated weight and balance. So from here, we could use this small box to, add a couple of folks. And then we have an auto load option where our system will automatically load the aircraft from front to back. But if we want to get more detailed, we'll go to the weight and balance tab. So again, here's your crew here. Of course, you can add more crew if you need to, make changes, and then you can add passengers and cargo, put them wherever you want. And I'm using just a pre-configured weight and balance profile. Depending on your aircraft, you have a lot of different configurations to choose from. So we've got templates. It's really easy to build the weight and balance profile. And as we're making these changes, you will see your envelope change on the right. So just to go back and show you that. Last thing we can do here on this tab is generate a load manifest. So this is just a PDF, and this is something that the crew is going to get delivered to them as well, so they can open this up, they can sign it, and they can send it back to you if they need to. All right, so now that we've made those changes in weight and balance, we go back to the flight tab, and you can see, again, everything is grayed out. So if you need to make additional changes, just go to that weight and balance tab, make the changes there. Scrolling down to the route section, the first option that you're always going to see is the recommended route. And this recommended route can be generated for any city pair, any airports globally. And the recommended route is going to consider wind, temperature, aircraft performance, what's most likely to be cleared as filed, and we're going to try to find you the best time and fuel optimized route for your flight. Below that, you can see, the ATC cleared routes, and a lot of times it's going to be the same because we're making sure that you're going to get cleared as filed. If there's a route that you want to use all the time, this is the one that you always get, you can click the save icon, and we'll prompt you. You can rename it if you want to. And once you do that, just below recommended routes, you're going to have a saved routes option, and you can manage those. Administrators can manage those in the settings. And now every time that I plan this city pair, this saved route is going to show up as well. Going over to the right side of the page, this drop-down that I'm showing right now is for the Nav Log. Something that we introduced earlier this year is the Nav Log Builder. So you have the ability to customize your nav logs, import logos. We'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. But I've just got a list of all of the nav logs that we've built on this account, and I can choose any nav log that I want for this specific flight. After I've chosen my nav log, I'm going to open up the briefing. Oh, let me fix that. There we go. So it's going to start with the nav log, and this is more of a true briefing packet here. So there's our nav log view, just our standard. We've got it set up to include the flight plan form, and then we get into the briefing. So a lot of weather information here, of course, your NOTAMs, METARs, TAFs, everything you're used to seeing there in the briefing. So now that we've done all of this planning, I'm going to hit save at the bottom right. We pretty much want you to actually make the choice to save because we don't want you to have a bunch of clutter for scenarios and that sort of thing. This is actually going to go out to the crew, and it's going to happen. So we hit save, and then we get a few more options, right? Now we can file the flight plan, now we can release it. Before we file the flight plan, I want to head over to the Runway Analysis tab. And we are having a runway analysis and weight and balance focused session this afternoon. So if you want to get more in the weeds on that, definitely come back here at 2 o'clock. So here on Dispatch, of course, it's integrated into mobile. And this is kind of your starting view, and you can open each section. So just starting with our takeoff, our departure airport, we've got all of the current weather information. So we'll have the METAR or TAF. Of course, on mobile, if you have the ATIS, you can manually change that to update that weather. And you can also configure the aircraft here. So if you need to change the surface condition or adjust the flaps, you can make those per flight changes. This toggle that's currently turned on is really awesome. This whole time while we were flight planning, the runways were already being checked and selected for us. So we will auto-select the runway and the engine out procedure for the best max takeoff weight. And so that's what you'll see just below here. So you've got your max takeoff weight limits, you can see your engine out procedures, and the little checkbox telling you this is the one that we picked. I wanted to highlight this error as well because as we normally do in ForeFlight, if you're trying to do something that can't be done, we're going to let you know about it. This was a tailwind component issue if you are too heavy. So there are a lot of checks in all of these places to make sure that you're not going to try to take off when you shouldn't. Opening up the landing section here, just the same thing, weather configuration and runway selection. And just at the bottom of the page here, we also have, you can do the same planning for your alternate. Last thing here on the Runway Analysis tab is, again, you can generate a report. And I have an image of it here. This is not the full report, but it will give you kind of high level for what you've selected at the top, and then we will also show you all of the other scenarios that we calculated and which ones are possible and which ones are not. Just to the right of Runway Analysis, we go to the ATC Data tab. So before we go file our flight plan, we can add any remarks that we need to. And some new features we added in this page is Flight Watchers. And that is for someone who's not crew, but they want to keep track of everything that's going on with that flight. Maybe a dispatcher or planner, really anyone who wants to get updates about the flight. You can add them as a flight watcher and they won't be counted in the payload or the souls on board. Another new tool we just added, great for communication with crews, is our dispatcher notes. So I just put in a sample here, tanker 1,000 pounds at Van Nuys. And that will show up on the crew nav logs. Now that we look good, we hit that file button. We'll get our prompt, are we sure we want to file? And seconds later, we've got an acknowledgement back. And then at the bottom of the screen here, we can see all of the filing messages that are coming through. So you'll get those almost instantly. And you can see the exact information that was sent to ATC. Heading over to the right again from the ATC Data tab is the Files tab. So there are some documents that we provide in Dispatch, the Nav Log, the briefing, the ICAO flight plan form, some other items. But if you need to add your own documents and share those to the crew, you can do that here. So I've just uploaded a couple of documents. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is something that trip support could come in and do as well. So if you have trip support docs, they can come in and upload them. Your planners can come in and upload them. And then they will be sent down to the crew. We support a wide number of file types. Could definitely get you the exact list if you want to know after the session. All right, so we've done all of our planning. We've filed our flight plan. We've added everything we need to add. I'm going to click the release button at the bottom right. And we're going to get this prompt. We can release this flight as read-only, or we can release it as editable. Depending on your operations, how much you want the crew to be able to make changes, if you want them to go straight back to dispatch for any changes they need to make, you can lock it. This is another place where you have the option to add your dispatcher notes as well. So we'll go ahead and release this. And one thing I want to mention actually on this slide as well is you have the option to choose per flight how you want to release it, but you can also set it up in your customized settings, right? I'm doing everything manually right now, but we could say always release as editable. Don't give the dispatchers an option to change it. So there's a lot of automation that we're not showing in this demo today. So now that we've released the flight, at the bottom, kind of left center here, we have last change. If I click View History, I can open up an audit trail for this flight. So everything that has happened from the moment that I created it and any changes that have happened are all going to show up here. So you can open up a section, as I've done here in this screenshot, and you can see if the fuel values were changed, the routing was changed, the crew was changed, anything that's happened to this flight, you have a trail and you know who touched it. And once we've released that flight, we go to ForeFlight Mobile, we go to the Flights tab, and there's our flight. We can open up the nav log and the briefing, take a look at that information. And we can also tap on the files that were added. We can open those up, take a look at them. So everything that we just planned is on mobile, available for the crew, and then they're ready to go. All right, so we walked through kind of every single field on that first flight plan. These next few are going to go a little bit faster. We're just going to point out a couple different features. For this flight, I'm going to use a G550, and we're going to go from Van Nuys to Teterboro. At the beginning of the flight planning process, you can put in a call sign. That's another thing you can automate too. You can set an operational rule that every time this tail number flies, you want it to fly this call sign. And that's another thing we'll get into tomorrow. Adding our alternate here, we've got a flight advisory. So there's quite a few different advisories that we are going to show here. The big one here, of course, today is that our alternate airport is closed. So then we can go back and change that alternate. Just quickly going through the fuel section here, choosing our FBO, choosing our crew again. And at the bottom right, we haven't really gotten into the map very much here, but we can expand this view. And similar to ForeFlight Mobile, you can turn on several different weather layers. You can view different route options here. The blue one is the one we've selected, but you can certainly change them and change the weather and watch that animate in real time. We'll go ahead and hit save. And again, going back to mobile, we've got all the information that we need. There's our flight plan. And if the crew is ready, they can hit the Send To button at the top right corner, send it to the map. Now we're on the Maps tab, and we've got our Jeppesen charts already on the map. We've got our routing, and we are ready to fly. This right here is showing our pack features. So if you don't have any of the charts or fuel prices or weather that you might need, we'll make sure that we pack that for you before you take off. All right. Getting into a transatlantic flight. Again, we have a G550, and we're going to go from Teterboro to Stansted. In the alternate section, I want to point out that for Eurocontrol, we do offer alternate routing. So this little box here, we can click auto or manual. So we will automatically suggest some waypoints to your alternate, or you could manually put them in. And then at the bottom there, you can also choose a cruise profile to your alternate. Just opening up the cruise advisor here again, setting up our crew, checking our recommended route. And you can see on the recommended route that it is Eurocontrol valid. So going into Europe or out of Europe, another check that we'll do on the recommended route is making sure that you're getting that Eurocontrol validation. We also offer the ability to input ETP and ETOPS. So I've just put in a couple of common ones for the transatlantic flight. And again, we can open up the map, take a look at our ETOPS rings, and we can see all of our different points, our different scenarios on the map. And when you do add ETPs, ETOPS, you will get an entirely new section in your Nav Log for all of the ETP scenarios, all of the calculations, all that information is going to be in your Nav Log. Where I want to go now is the Route Builder. So this is like if you need to get a little bit more complicated than just your normal recommended route. In the Route Builder, we have the ability to add constraints. There's quite a few constraints. Again, we'll get more into detail in the next session. But the one I'm going to use for this flight is going via a track. So we can choose use any, or we can select the exact track that we want to use. And once we've added as many constraints as we want, we can hit generate new route. And we've got a new route here, and it is Eurocontrol valid. And of course, you can take a look at the map on the right. One other really handy thing in the Route Builder here is these are all of your waypoints. And if we scroll down, we can make by leg adjustments. The one that we have in there today is the ability to change your altitude. So a lot of times, maybe if you need to descend early into an airport or something like that, you can make those changes. Say I want to, descend to 380 before or after this waypoint, and we'll automatically change all of the altitudes around that as well. Let's go back to the main flight view, and we'll hit save. And of course, again, we will send that directly down to the crew, and they can view that on their iPads. So it's really pretty seamless, and it's very fast, going from dispatch to mobile. And we can also go back from mobile to dispatch. So the crew can make changes and do updates, and that will automatically be synced back into dispatch. So at that point, I want to open it up for Q&A.
Does the crew acknowledge the dispatch, and then that gets sent back to the dispatch application so that the dispatcher sees that the crew accepted it?
So there isn't like a definite acknowledge at this time. That's definitely something we're looking into, though.
On the fuel planning and the weight and balance, does the weight and balance feature autofill the fuel based on the flight plan and what was planned? Or you have to input the fuel when you're doing weight and balance?
It will autofill. Yeah, we'll go ahead and make those fuel calculations for you as soon as you put in departure destination.
And that transfers over to the weight and balance?
Correct.
For the weight and balance, if say you use the autofill function, is it tied to passenger names? How would you know which passengers need to be seated where?
So right now it is just adults, children, males, females. It isn't dedicated to a certain name for passengers. For the crew, absolutely, because they're built into your business account. But yeah, I think that's something we're looking into as well.
Is there an SMS program tied into this?
There is no SMS at this time.
On the route building segment, is there a way you could visually drag and drop a route, move it around?
So that is something that we are working on that is about to come out. So right now you'll need to just make changes manually via text in the route string. But yes, rubber banding is coming very soon.
Do you have any cost-related fields that can be auto-populated through the FBOs, for example? The costing for landing fees, overnight, etc.?
So I think your question is about fees for FBOs. We really just have the fuel prices. Tomorrow in the Dispatch 201, we are going to talk about our new integrated tankering tool. But generally what we've found is we cannot find a reliable source for those fees, and everyone has their own different deals. So right now would be manual input.
How long are the manifests stored within the packages? Do you store them, or do we store them somewhere else outside your system?
So we store all flight plans indefinitely, and they become locked and archived after, I think it's 48 hours. So you could absolutely go back into a flight and access any of the documents related to that flight. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and do you have the ability for the editor and the board manifest the captain can sign, can you sign on the package or flight plan to their signature in that package?
Yeah, so they can sign the manifest. I don't think there's another place for a signature.
Yeah, just on the load manifest.
Yeah, just on the load manifest that they can sign.
Under flight advisories, is there aircraft control delays or notifications that come through?
I believe so. We can definitely, after the session, get you a full list of everything that's shown in that view.
When you are looking at ocean and flight plan with ETPs, can you go to the map and annotate on it, select a 10-minute check, put a time, data points, like logs, things like that?
Yes.
If the crew makes changes, how is dispatch notified?
If the crew changes?
If the crew makes changes to the flight plans or?
Oh, if they make changes, if the crew makes changes, they will automatically just sync back and auto save in dispatch, and then you can go into the change history that we showed, and you can see what changes they made.
Would that change can only be done on the dispatch webpage, or you cannot make a change on the iPad? You can't make a change to the iPad app?
So depending on how you release it, if you release it as read-only right now, the crew can't make any changes. They have to call dispatch, to get them to make the changes. But if you release it as editable, everything that we did, they could change. So yeah, if they need to, change their departure time, add somebody to the weight and balance, they can do all of that in mobile.
On your oceanic ETPs, are those just manually entered at this point, or do you have an ETP generator in the works?
We don't have an ETP generator. Yeah, you just set it up per aircraft profile, so you set your own ETP limits and ETOPS ranges.
And for clients that are using other flight planning services that do the automatic, do you guys accept an ARINC 633 packet or anything like that? Can you do this?
I'm not super familiar with that packet. We can definitely upload custom files into Dispatch. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're looking for, though.
What I'm hearing is this ARINC 633 data packet could come with these other vendors, and they can send that to you with the printed flight that you can see, your printed document, but also a data packet that can be imported.
Okay.
And you would have the electronic flight in your flight plan.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we integrate with that ARINC at this time. One thing, though, you reminded me of is we support FMS Uplink with SOTCOM Direct, Honeywell, and ARINC. So you can set that up with us very easily, and we can generate a recall number so you can load this into your FMS as well. Is there another question?
Yeah, with the crew files, is that just a file that you build yourself, or can you integrate with like a crew file software that would pull the crew data?
So I don't think we do currently from scheduling. I don't think any files come over. That's definitely something we could consider in the future. Right now, it's just you sign in a dispatch and you upload them.
The route advisor, are you able to pull in the preferred routing from different parts of the world?
Yes. So, and that is a section I didn't show in my screenshots, but you've got recommended route, saved routes, ATC cleared, and then preferred. So you got a quite a long list of route options there.
Is there a possibility, from a dispatching point of view, to see like a God's eye view if you have multiple tails doing multiple different routes, say one plane flying to New York, and one going to Edinburgh, to see the different planes in your stomach?
Sort of like flight tracking. So today we don't have tracking. It's definitely something that we're looking into. The best thing that you could do is look at the kind of the starting point, the flights list, and we will show you edicts, clear takeoff times, so that information you can at least see kind of where they're at in the beginning of their flight. Any other questions?
I'm Michael with ForeFlight. I actually have a question for the gentleman in the third row about ETOPS, ETP. Yes, sir. You asked about automatic calculation. Did you mean, we do that in the sense that you provide the potential possible airports only, and then we do all the calculations for you. I'm not sure if that's what you referred to. Or
Well, there are other vendors that offer the generator, so to speak. So I just tell them the airplane, the route, they do the flight planning, and then they also calculate based on the weather and what altitudes I choose or optimal. They base these fees on that information and tell me what these fees go to be.
Okay, yeah. In our case, you need to supply the 3 or more airports, and all performance data is included, all the weather is included. It would automatically calculate the options for those 3 or 4 or 5 airports that you supply. So it's really like a 10-second step. If you have your comments, Shannon and Gander and things like that, you just pop those in there, and it will do the calculations for you and do the analysis for you as well.
Yeah, we'd be happy to show you that in the booth or even just after the session here. We've got our iPads with us, so we could show you what that looks like, make sure you've got what you need. Any other questions before we wrap up? All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming. Just a couple things here. Some contact information, some places to learn more, and of course you can come talk to us at the booth. Happy to give you personal demos, and we also have some brochures with us. So if you want to grab a brochure, feel free. Thanks everyone.